All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and MG Flasher, I have to apologize. I just was not familiar with your game. Or maybe it would be more accurate to say we kind of forgot about your game. At the time when MG Flasher really came out kicking, they made a name for themselves by adding some crazy features to their platform that we didn't see anywhere else. But eventually it seemed like they kind of fell off, and I attributed that largely to them not having FlexFuel capability. We all saw when MHD and boot mode came out with it, and they were already chasing EcuTech that had FlexFuel for a while, but MG Flasher took a little bit longer. But now it is officially released. It came out a couple months ago, which I thought was pretty cool. But then I read more into the details and realized that I can honestly say MG Flasher has the best FlexFuel implementation out there for your B58 BMW. So in this video, I'm going to explain why I think that is, kind of how it works and what sets them apart. And hopefully this answers any questions you might have, especially for those of you MG Flasher guys that have been sitting patiently waiting for this to come out. Now is your time to celebrate. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. Please find this video useful. I am begging you. It is extremely cold in here. Look at this. Do you see that? That's my breath. But I'm doing this for you guys. So please find this video useful. So as always, let's start with talking about the basics, just in case you're new to this. FlexFuel is going to help your car take advantage of the miracle fuel that we call ethanol. Ethanol has extremely high octane properties, so it allows you to safely run more boost and more timing, which makes more power, while also giving you added cooling benefits inside the combustion chamber. So it works really well from a performance standpoint, but it does require altering your fueling profile to make sure that you can drive your car safely. So when you implement FlexFuel, it takes care of all of that. A FlexFuel sensor will read your ethanol content and adjust how much boost your turbo is making, how much timing your engine is requesting, and adjust your fueling so that you're keeping everything nice and safe for the amount of ethanol that you're running. So in most cases, anybody would say this is the best option to use if you want to run ethanol, because it takes all of the guesswork out of it. It allows you to run ethanol safely without running into fuel pressure dips or leaning out your engine and things that can cause damage. So of course, the MG Flasher version works with all of that. It will adjust all of your tuning parameters to make sure your car is making the power that it should while safely adjusting your fueling. It even can adjust things like your cold start fueling. So for those of you that don't know, if you run a lot of ethanol in the winter, it can be very difficult to start your car as temps get colder. And so they're able to adjust the cold start enrichment so that you have an easier time adjusting your car even when temps get down to the negatives like what we're seeing now in winter. So it works, again, really well in practice to make sure that you can adjust that for higher ethanol mixes so you don't end up stranded and stuck trying to start your car in the cold. Also, MG Flasher FlexFuel works with any of the FlexFuel kits that are out there as long as they communicate over CAN bus. So that includes ones like the MHD FlexFuel kit, the Dorch FlexFuel kit, boot mode, reflex, anything that communicates over CAN bus can be read by the MG Flasher tune. So the nice thing is you don't need to get any new hardware or anything. You can use pretty much what's already available, install that on your car, and then enable the FlexFuel tune in MG Flasher. And another great feature that I've talked about in the past is also available here with MG Flasher, and that is the optimal mix tuning. So they basically have two different FlexFuel maps that you are going to be blending in between. You can set the first one at your optimal mix. Usually that's around E40 or E50. And then you can set the second one to full E85. Now you don't have to do both of those. You can just set it from E0 all the way up to E85 on one map. But the benefit here is if you're on a DI setup, a lot of times your optimal mix in the middle is going to be where you make the most power. then when you go up to full E85, you're not going to be able to add more power because it's going to put more of a strain on your fuel system. So having the ability to flex between those two different maps so that you can still set that optimal mix in the middle is really key to making sure that you can safely adjust your tune even when you run higher ethanol mixes. So I'm a big fan of that strategy, especially for people that have relatively stock setups. You know, if you just have a downpipe or a high pressure fuel pump upgrade, but you don't have port injection and things that can make, you know, crazy amounts of power on full E85, this will make sure that you keep everything safe. Now let's go ahead and talk about the features, because again, that's really what MG Flasher specializes in. That's kind of their bread and butter here. And this is no different. They made sure that this was a full, complete implementation that would give you all the capability you're looking for. So first of all, yes, the off-the-shelf maps do have FlexFuel capability, so you don't need a custom tune in order to use FlexFuel, but using a custom tune will give you some added features as well. So with the off-the-shelf maps, you're able to run anywhere from E0 up to E50. If you get a custom tune, then that will allow you to run up to full E85 as well. They may add full E85 capability on their off-the-shelf maps if there's enough demand for it, but it really does make sense depending on your setup just to get a custom tune so you can get everything dialed in exactly for your needs. They also have increased the logging parameters, so everything that you need to make sure that you're safely running the FlexFuel tune is now built into the MG Flasher logging suite. So if you go through the parameters, you can see things like ethanol content. You can even see some aspects of how the blend is working for your custom tuning. So that will make sure that everything is working properly, and whatever your calculations are for boost and timing will make sure that you're landing in the right range wherever your ethanol may fall. You also have the live ethanol display, so if you don't want to always have your phone out to read it from the logging dashboard, you can see it directly in your dash. What you're going to do is long press on the steering wheel toggle, and what that will do is bring up your ethanol content in the tachometer. So all the numbers that you see that normally reference RPM will now reference your ethanol content. If it's at 1,000 RPM, that's E10. If it's at 3,000 RPM, that's E30. So you can look anywhere in the rev range and see exactly how much ethanol you're running. Now, yes, depending on your tach, it's going to be limited. Like on my B58s, they only go up to 7,500 RPM, so you can only see up to E75. If you have an S58 car, like an M3, then it should go up to, I think, 8,000 RPM, so you can see up to E80. But largely anything above like E60 or E70 is pretty much all the same for a lot of us anyway. So the main advantage is seeing in those lower ethanol ranges exactly where you are. And then let's talk about my favorite feature, the ethanol content override. And this is something that I definitely think is missing from other platforms, because you're able to manually select the amount of ethanol that your car has, so it'll override whatever your FlexFuel sensor is reading. Or it can work without a FlexFuel sensor at all. So now instead of trying to say, okay, am I running my pump gas map or my E30 map or my E85 map or whatever the settings are that are given to you by the platform, now you can select the exact amount of ethanol that you put in the car at any time. This also works great if your FlexFuel sensor messes up. Some of you guys have experienced that before. It's just an electronic sensor like everything else on our cars. So yes, it can fail. And if it starts bugging out and saying that your ethanol content is wrong, or it randomly, trips and shows the wrong ethanol reading, or maybe it just fails completely and isn't reading at all, you still have the option to manually select how much ethanol content you're running, so you can continue driving your car without having any issues. So I think this is huge, especially for those of you that are just starting to play with ethanol. Maybe you get your mix wrong, you're running an E30 map, and by mistake you put E40 or E50 in. Instead of just having to deal with it and potentially running into fuel pressure issues or trying to run out your tank, halfway down so you can add more pump gas, you can simply just select E50 from the menu and continue driving your car. So awesome, awesome idea from MG Flasher. I don't know why nobody else has thought of this. It really should work well in practice. Now, the way that you're going to do this is pretty simple. Again, you go into the custom code menu inside your dash using the steering wheel buttons, and then you're going to go to the FlexFuel section, and then you're going to select whether you want to turn the ethanol content override on or off. So at 1,000 RPM, it's going to turn it on. At 0 RPM, it's going to turn it off. If you turn it on, then in the next menu, you can actually select your ethanol, which is the same as the live ethanol reading. So if you set it at 1000 RPM, you're telling the car you're running E10. If you set it at 3500 RPM, you're telling the car you're running E35. So you can set it exactly to where you want your ethanol content to land. Again, really great idea, and I'm excited to see how this works for those of you guys with MG Flasher. Now, there are a couple things that you need in order for this to work. The first thing is you need to be on the latest custom code, so you will need to reflash your car with the latest update from MG Flasher. It should be custom code at least 7.3 or greater. And if you're flashing an off-the-shelf map, you want to make sure that FlexFuel is enabled. So what you're going to do is go to your tune settings and make sure in the custom options menu that you select the ethanol option, and then go to edit and select enable FlexFuel blending by checking that box. And then you can pick whether you want to have the ECA enabled, the ethanol override enabled, or both. I highly recommend both, even if you do have an ethanol sensor, because again, that will make sure that you can still override the sensor reading in case you have an issue with the sensor down the road. Now, in some cases, it might say that your software isn't supported, and in that case, just reach out to MG Flasher. Our cars have such a wide range of different softwares depending on the platform and stuff that they just kind of implemented this initially on the most highly used ones. So it's going to be on more of a case-by-case basis for the people that have more of a rare setup, maybe depending on your specific model or something like that. So again, don't just assume that it's not available to you. Reach out to them and they should be able to patch it so that it works for your car. And then of course, if you want to use FlexFuel, you need a FlexFuel kit. So again, any kit that works over CAN will work with MG Flasher. And then something I'm glad to say, this works for everybody. So this works if you have a Gen 1 or Gen 2 B58, a Gen 1 or Gen 2 B48, S58, or even if you have a hybrid B48 or B58 platform, this works for you. So no picking out favorites on this one. Everybody will be able to use it and enjoy it at this time. So if you guys have more questions, let me know. There is a full manual on MG Flasher's website and it explains all of these details and more. It also has a tuning guide. So if your tuner is getting into FlexFuel tuning, or maybe you're getting into tuning yourself, the guide will help explain exactly how the FlexFuel map blending works, how to calculate how much boost and timing your car is going to make at various amounts of ethanol and things like that. So it makes it really easy for you to understand exactly how to tune your car to get the results you're looking for. So I'll have a link to that down in the video description so you can check that out for yourself. But otherwise, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.